welcome to Chairboys Chat. This is episode 8, I believe, so we're doing pretty well getting these rolling out. Next week, it might be a little bit different next week, but here we're going to be looking at Wycombe Wanderers, we're going to be looking at the Championship, we're going to be looking at the Premier League, and we're going to fit in there somewhere. We're going to be looking at the managers and captains of teams, the managers in both leagues and captains in the Premier League. So, in what order we get through that, we'll sort out at the end. Wycombe Wanderers, Kieran. Last 2 games, remember, since we did a Chairboys Chat, that was losing and drawing.
Well, I watched the second half of the QPR game, and first 10 minutes we looked pretty decent. We created some chances, but you can just see that our pattern of play is just so dull. It's so just lump it up, see what happens, hope the ball drops for us at some point, and then we kind of capitalise off that. And realistically, we got lucky with our goal at the end. So what can we really say about that?
What can we say about that? Yeah,
what can we do about it?
I like to support Wycombe. I understand why he plays the way Ainsworth plays the way he does, but I do think it needs to change, doesn't it? It does need to change. I think that Akinfenwa, I'm sorry to say, as I said in the And Where I Stand recording after the match, I think he needs to have a sit down. He needs to make way. And we do have the January buying window, and I know it's not my money, but in all honesty, if Ikpeazu, what did you think when he came on? Do you think he is the replacement?
I don't think you can judge a player off a few substitute appearances. I think you have to give him a run of games to see if he's going to be any good or not.
And that has to happen as soon as possible, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Akinfenwa, of course he works in League 1 and 2. We know he does. He's done it for us for 4 or 5 years.
I'm not sure he would this year.
Maybe not. We have to remember as well, he is 38, 39. Realistically, the fact he's still playing football is still a bit of a madness. So playing Championship football with his style of play at the age he is just a bit it's just a no-goer. It just is. We have tried it for a decent amount of time now, and it doesn't seem to be getting us places too much. So it probably is time for a change. It can work as a substitute in the last 20 minutes kind of thing. It can change it up, yes, but
I think you've just gone into still mode. But I'm gonna say there that Akinfenwa, you have frozen, Kieran. That's better. Akinfenwa, with the so-called flick-ons. If I hear another, and Akinfenwa has flicked it on. If I hear another one of them, I think I'm going to just go to sleep. They certainly don't go anywhere, and things do need a change. I understand that we've come up with a Division 1 team into the Championship. I do understand that, but I also think Akinfenwa and the idea of belting the ball up the middle for a flick-on is not going to work.
No.
And we do have a couple of other players we've got 3, haven't we? The guy that scored the goal, and we've got a couple of others, Horgan, and what's the name of the other guy? McCleary. They look pretty good with the ball on the ground, and I think they need to be told it's time to play ball on ground and have a go when you get a chance. Don't look to the back post for Akinfenwa. It's time to head for the goal.
You also have to stem that from your defenders as well, because in order for those players to get the ball on the ground, you're going to have to tell, Jacobson and Grimmer and the centre backs to start playing football out of the back, which we haven't done for a very long time. And so just instantly trying to get that in, I think, will be very good.
I don't think from Mr. Goalkeeper necessarily to play it out the back like that some of the dreadful football you can see and mistakes. I don't think we want that. But you can use the midfield and go for goal, can't we?
I think we've got to try it, because at the moment we're not getting enough points, are we? As simple as that.
We're not going to stay up with the style of football.
No. Okay. It doesn't mean we don't appreciate everything that Akinfenwa's done in the last 4 or 5 years or anything like that.
I want him in that dressing room. I want him on the side. I want him for the last 10 minutes. But I think, does he want to be on that football pitch for 90 minutes? I bet not. No, I don't mean to throw him on the heap. Not at all. That guy has brought us up, and I do appreciate that. And I would cheer him like no man when he walks around that football pitch. Of course, I love the bloke. Yeah. He's brilliant. But don't forget, I read his book recently, and don't just presume these players are Wycombe players, because they're not. His team is Northampton. He'll always be a Northampton fan, but he plays for Wycombe, and he puts his heart into it with the team he's playing for. And I know that, just as I put my heart into the players that play for us. And we discussed the whole booing thing last week, and I would never boo my team. And he doesn't deserve any put down. He deserves me on my knees clapping the guy. And I don't mean to be rude to him in any form or fashion. Well, have you looked at the EFL then? And what's been going on there?
We've seen bits and pieces.
Well, it wasn't such a brilliant sort of last couple of games. Teams are now, we picked up 1 point from those 2 games, and teams are starting to edge forward on us. There's this little thing in my head that has this hope, but in all honesty, also I'm not an idiot, and I dream. And again, we are definitely now at the bottom of that list. We are at the bottom of the table, and on form for the last 6 games, we are bottom of the table. So you can have as many dreams as you like, but Wycombe are 24th. We picked up 2 points in the last 6 games, which isn't a lot. It's not that many less, mind you, than Tottenham, but we'll talk about that in a while. Above us is Queen's Park Rangers. How about that? In the 6 games, they're having an atrocious time, and they are slowly moving down that table. I said that again last week. Above them are Sheffield Wednesday, Rotherham. In the last 6 matches, Rotherham and Sheffield Wednesday have picked up 4 points. And then Nottingham, Millwall as we move up the table.
Everyone played each other this weekend, didn't they? Or were going to.
They did. Go on.
Sheffield Wednesday obviously beat Coventry. Millwall drew with Nottingham Forest. We played QPR, and Rotherham were going to play Derby, but they had COVID thing, didn't they? Yeah,
but you see, a Rotherham versus Derby, there isn't a good outcome of that game for us, is there?
Not particularly.
Because we jump up and down for joy with a point, but a point isn't going to move us forward. Most games when teams are close to you, you think, a draw, that's what we really need. Well, not really. The draw doesn't help us at all.
You need draws against top 12 teams and then wins against the bottom 12.
The problem with the top 12 is really, apart from Norwich, the rest are winning, losing. I mean, okay, there are a couple of teams that are getting 2 points a game. Okay, that's Barnsley, Cardiff, Middlesbrough, and Brentford are getting 2 points a game in the last 6 matches. Norwich have got 15 points in the last 6 games. Norwich have got all their players back and they are heading straight for the Premiership. They are going to take one of those top 2 points. Who comes in next? I don't know. But Watford sacked the manager again.
And have found this new bloke from somewhere I have never heard of. They do like to pick out these managers from weird and wonderful places to Watford.
Yeah.
They don't go for your classic English managers in the Championship, do they?
They don't. I mean, yeah, Allardyce would never have got the job at Norwich, would he? Sorry, at Watford. Watford aren't doing very well. They, in the last 6, I always think the last 6 is very interesting to look at. We can have a look at the main table in a minute. But Watford are 14th. They picked up 8 points in the last 6 matches. Okay, I'll have a look at the real table in a minute. But I always think that is quite interesting because that does make a difference. 8 points in 6 games. They are not doing very well. I do not believe they are going to take one of those top 2 places. Bournemouth, maybe. Norwich, definitely. Okay? Because the league table, Bournemouth are in there at 2nd. And I said I like Swansea, didn't I? I said that last week on the Chairboys. Yeah. Swansea are in there at 3rd. They've moved up. Watford are now 5th. So they are 4 points below Bournemouth in 2nd. And that could be mass difference.
I think it's quite difficult to say at the moment because there's no team, apart from Norwich, have been particularly consistent. There's a good 6 or 7 teams who are on 9/10 wins.
Yeah.
From Bournemouth to Reading kind of thing.
They are all up there, aren't they? I mean, take your pick. I mean, I'd say you've got the Reading, Stoke, Middlesbrough, Watford, Brentford, Swansea and Bournemouth are all going for the second place or the top 6. And there's not enough spaces in the top 6 even.
I don't think there's a clear team who could really take that. The only thing you could say is that Bournemouth have only lost 2, and that might put them above the rest. But apart from that...
Also, they might be able to buy themselves help.
Indeed. I'd imagine they'd kept a lot of their players from their Premier League season, as did Norwich, to be fair.
And Norwich were able to cope with the little period of time, was 2 or 3 matches where they had 6 players out. They were able to get through that period of time because of the quality of the team. But how good a quality are these teams to go up? Because surely Norwich are just going up as they came down.
It is essentially the same team. It's not a lot different, is it?
No. And Bournemouth have actually lost 1 or 2 of their team. So they'll be going up, not as good as they came down.
I mean, you don't know whether you can determine of how they played against us, but both Norwich and Bournemouth only scraped beating us both times, arguably for reasons that shouldn't have even occurred. A red card against Bournemouth, and there was a free kick against Norwich, I think.
Yeah, that's where the Norwich player stood on the Wycombe Wanderers' foot.
Yeah.
And Norwich got the free kick, yeah.
So these teams just don't seem like they have it in them to...
And then you got the Swansea, we played them, and I thought they were the better of. And then you got Brentford, who we drew against.
And, yeah, in the EFL Cup at the start of the season as well, didn't we?
So, to be honest, if we were to play West Ham, we'd be slaughtered, weren't we?
I think we'd get battered. I think we did. We played them in pre-season, I think, didn't we?
Yeah.
I think we did get battered.
So when Brentford, who couldn't beat us, play West Ham.
Yeah.
I mean,
There is a gap, isn't there, between Championship and Premier League? Is that starting to build up?
yeah, and me and Kieran will be doing just as good place to advertise it. We will be doing a whole where the money goes in football. We're going to be putting that together this week. We'll put Christmas aside and we will spend our time putting the whole money situation. We'll pick 6 teams, 3 from the Premier League, 3 from the Championship, from top, middle, bottom of both leagues, and we'll show you where the money goes and how all those 6 teams finish in their positions based on their money. And so you can predict where teams finish in the league based on where they finish with the quantity of money. Okay, so watch out for that. We'll be putting that together this week and hopefully it'll come out next week. So that's the Championship. Very quickly at the bottom, Nottingham Forest. What are they doing? How can they? Surely they cannot go down. But then people are talking about Arsenal. Surely they cannot come down. So we're going to leave that here, other than to say Pulis, Sheffield Wednesday, would you want him as your manager?
No.
We're going to move across and say, in the same breath, we're now moving to the PL. Allardyce, Pulis, almost in one breath. Would you want Allardyce as your manager?
The problem is with these sort of managers that you know they're not going to be around for very long. I think personally, from supporting Wycombe and Liverpool my whole life, we've never been teams that have chopped and changed managers and like too much. We've always had them for a good 2 years at least. And so I don't know what it is like supporting these teams who keep chopping and changing managers. I can't imagine it's very fun because you still have the large majority of the same players maybe, but I know from my time as being a football supporter, I've grown very attached to the managers I've had, like Ainsworth and Klopp, like 2 of the most charismatic managers in English football. And so I can't imagine you would want them because you know that they're not going to be there for very long. And you may have a good few, games where you remember them for a long time. But at the end of the day, you want to be making steady progress the whole time. And you know that someone else is just going to come in at the end of the day and you could well become if you're a West Brom, you could just become a staple Premier League team, or you may get relegated depending on who comes in after Allardyce. You
see, West Brom, I think, was shocking in the way they treated their manager. I think really, Allardyce should say, no, get lost. You treat people like that. No, thank you. I mean, when you go for an ordinary job, you look at the company and you think, is the company any good or not? Well, West Brom, where your manager discovers he's lost his job from the players looking on Facebook on the coach on the way back, I think that was disgusting. Why you would want the job? And Allardyce is in there for what? To keep them up. And yet, to suggest he can do it, but we're going to bring a championship team up and you're going to have to help make us survive, even though you don't have the team to do so. I mean, is Allardyce going to keep them up?
I have this inclination to think he probably will because he's done it so many times before. I don't think West Brom's team is overly bad in comparison to some of the other teams who are down there in the Premier League. Because I think they have just about enough quality, whereas if they can get their defensive shape right and a good mentality, which is what supposedly Allardyce brings to these teams at the bottom, and I think they'll probably be okay. But that is all it will be.
He wasn't a happy boy, though, was he? On on their first game with him as manager.
No. I
Livermore
imagine they
got
would be.
sent off after
Mm.
4 minutes.
Mm.
4 minutes. And when he spoke about that, I wouldn't have wanted to be Livermore in that dressing room. He was not
No.
happy.
No.
Um,
It's one of those where you're trying to prove to the manager and then you completely cock it up.
and yet your captain goes on there and just takes a player out. Although
can't believe
later,
he's captain.
Aston Villa did the same. One of their players did exactly the same tackle and stayed on the pitch.
I noticed the headline in Allardyce's interview was something to do with VAR. Of course it was.
Of course it was. I think that is such a cop-out now. It's getting boring, actually. Well, let's quickly, while we're on that topic, we're going to have a quick look at how teams deal with managers. Because apart from Mr. West Brom and Watford, they're not the only ones to get the sack. And I wonder, is it about time managers got treated the same way in their job as you or me? Not you, but I mean you as in the people watching this and me. In that you take the job on. If you want to leave, you have to put in a certain length of time to say, I'm leaving. And if they want to get rid of you, they have to give you a notice. Now, rather than a sacking, but they have to have good reason for you to go, but they have to give you a notice. But I also wonder about contracts and about working your contract out, that if you take a 2-year contract as a manager, you do your 2 years, full stop. So if they are a little bit concerned about taking you on, they give you a 1-year contract. So you don't chop and change during a season. You take a minimum of a 1-year contract to stop all this messing around in sacking him to get him to get him to get him, who's knocking around now. Oh, Allardyce hasn't had a job for a year, and I will have Allardyce. Oh, what's so and so? Oh, we'll have him for the next 6 months, but we can sack him then and get somebody else. How about literally writing a contract and they have to do that contract? What do you think?
I'd see it as more of a benefit for teams if they did do that, because I think they take a lot more care in who you get as a manager. You will probably get someone who has some sort of loyalty to the club already, or will have a lot of loyalty to the club, and if they do well, this is the thing. If they do well, then the relationship between the manager and the fans and the players will significantly improve. If you look at Liverpool, for example, I hate to use the example because I'm very biased, but the relationship between them all is very good. And over time, if there's success at your club, then that'll improve and there'll be a much more positive feeling around the club. But I just cannot see, if teams are doing badly, that they can just stick by a manager for a continuous amount of time until they eventually get relegated or something. Because they could have done something about it at the time. But
yearly contracts, you don't think are a good idea? It just strikes me.
I think the yearly would probably be a good idea, but it just won't happen because people want to have, they want to be stapled in their job, kind of thing.
But players can't move around except for certain windows in a year, even. They can't move around in November.
True.
It just strikes me that managers never know when they're going to end up getting sacked. I mean, take Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. The whole press are going for him to get sacked. Why have that over their heads? If they know, when you take a manager on, you tell them we'll take you on for 3 years. We want you to build that team up over that time. And then after 1 year, the press are going for you to sack him. Why take him on for 3 years? Surely if you write that contract out, the contract can have flaws in it. The contract can say, unless if we end up below here, then that, if we end up in the bottom 4, then that would be time to leave at a certain time. But rather than this whole, they're talking about Mr. Arsenal. They're talking about him losing his job. And yet Sheffield United, I was listening to the owners the other day, and they were talking about his job is safe. That's always dodgy, but it really sounded like they were. They applauded him for getting a team that weren't big enough into the Premier League. And they the owners recognised they're not a big enough club to be there and would accept that team going down, accepting that he'd done miracles to get them up in the first place. Now, if he feels safe in that job, he will be put in 110% in. If you've got this cloud over you thinking, I lose the next job, I'm out, the next game, I'm out, that's not good. I just think contracts should be written and should last. Managers can't leave, you can't sack them.
I think there'll be too much pressure from fans. Hence why I think a lot of the reason for sackings in general is because of pressure from fans, as opposed to whether they want to actually make a decision.
There wouldn't be any pressure if you can't get rid of them. If you know it's only in May at the end of the season, you can change your manager.
But when you then have continuous negativity and booing around the stadium, if the team just cannot win games.
I don't know. I'd want to think a lot more about that. Everybody out there, have a think about that and maybe write your thoughts. Spend a bit of time, maybe more than I have, writing your thoughts. How long we've been going, Kieran? Any idea?
Don't know.
We're going half an hour. So we'll try and get this done in 15 minutes. We'll give the captains thing a miss till next time. I want to discuss the whole idea of captains, who actually is a decent captain and who isn't, working on the theory. I was going to bring along the whole thing, people, Abby, Arsenal's captain, Mr. Goal Scorer. Arsenal's captain.
Aubameyang.
Yes.
Yeah.
How useless he is as a captain.
I
wanted to mention that because you never hear his voice on a football pitch. And we were going to go along and have a look at all the teams, and we're going to give them a yes or a no as should they be captain or not. We could do that anyway, but instead of predictions.
Yeah, if you fancy.
Well, shall we have a look at the predictions that we made last week?
Yeah.
And talk about those games. Now, we'll save captains till next time.
Okay. So instead of doing the weekend games, we did the midweek games. So it's a little bit further back. But Chelsea played Wolves, and I said Chelsea, you said the draw, and Wolves won it in the last minute, in fact.
Chelsea aren't doing particularly well, are they? I said the team they play above halfway, they're not winning them, are they?
Their problem in that game looked to be their goalkeeper. Like, the first goal it did have a deflection, but it was near post and it was from a tight angle, and so you could argue you should probably do a bit better at that one. The second one, definitely, because it was from a much tighter angle and he sticks out a foot but doesn't really get anywhere near it. And so I don't know what they do about goalkeeper. I don't know whether they should just replace his goalkeeper just straight away. I don't think he's that bad yet, but he's not Alisson, Tottenham's goalkeeper. goalkeeper quality kind of thing, which is probably what they need. They can't really spend more money on goalkeepers. They spent about 100 million on them the last year or two. So
bad choice of goalkeepers then.
bad choice, yeah.
Are Chelsea a top 6 team?
Top 6, definitely. They have enough quality for that.
You're frozen again. You keep freezing, Kieran. We'll have to change the room you're in next time. I'm not sure about Chelsea. I'm really not. I don't see the quality in there to do much. I really don't. I don't think they'll be in the top 6. I don't.
I think they'll be top 6, but title winners, they're nowhere near whatsoever.
I think there's too many other teams in there at the moment that I don't see why they should be in the top 6 when you've got Southampton. Well, Southampton have got a problem, but Everton, Southampton, Leicester. There's just too many other teams knocking around at the moment, and I don't see that Chelsea have the quality to beat everybody. I just don't see that. Okay,
I think they have quality. I think that manager, to be honest, isn't in the know-how yet.
Okay, next one.
Next was Man City versus West Brom. We obviously said Man City would twat them, and it was a draw.
It was a draw, yes. Now, what does that say about Manchester City? More than West Brom, actually. We know what it says about West Brom. It said West Brom might have been fighting for their lives, for their manager, but you'd then have to question why they hadn't done so before. So I'm not sure about that. You have to say that was a Manchester City mistake and fault. And again, I'm going to repeat myself. Now, that's not a shock, is it, Kieran? In saying Mr. Forward, Aguero, they do not have Aguero. And they do not have a number. There's about 3 players who they did have, who they don't have. But you look at the names, and I'm afraid Manchester teams, both Manchester teams,
they have no excuses, do they?
They have no excuses. But I might have said again before, I think what they lack is a manager that knows what the hell to do when they're not winning. He's only ever managed teams that he's walked into that have bought success. And when success hasn't quite worked with what he's bought, he's never had to try and figure it out himself. And all he does, he looks like he's getting more and more depressed without a clue. And I don't think he will take them out. It'd be interesting to see whether he leaves first.
I think if they don't win a Champions League or Premier League this season, then Pep's gone for certain.
And will he still be a so-called god in football, or will people start to read?
Depends where he goes and if he gets success. If he goes to Juventus, then no one will care about what he does because Juventus are they can walk their league.
Okay.
We both said that Southampton would beat Arsenal, but in fact it was a draw.
It was. But I have to. Well, talking about Arsenal, will they go down?
No, don't be silly.
I also have to say Southampton do have a problem now. And that is, you've frozen again. You are going to have to change rooms next time. It's because he's come home, you see, and he's picked the dining room, and it's obviously not the best.
Your Wi-Fi's crap, mate.
Yeah, my Wi-Fi's crap. That is improved. That we're doing something about that. But Southampton have a problem. Ings has got a hamstring problem. And they do rather rely on him, don't they? So Southampton might have a problem from now on. Arsenal. The other thing I have to say about Arsenal is that Williams he's had, is it one shot on target all season?
Not surprised. He's been awful since he's been there.
He's been awful since he's been there. Next game is you don't suppose you can move your computer, can you, Kieran?
Where? I'm right next to the Wi-Fi extender, mate. It's a fucking dude.
Next one is you're going to say Fulham Brighton.
Yeah, if you like.
And what was that?
It was a draw. And it was a 0-0. And I said Fulham, you said Brighton. But we probably should have guessed it would be a draw because that one does spark a 0-0.
Brighton are a team, I believe, going down.
Really?
And
they could be dragged into it easily.
I hope. Isn't that an awful thing to say, just saying that? I hope they go down. Shouldn't say that, should you? They're just another team that just sit there, you know.
And don't do anything. And
very similar to Newcastle in my book, which is the Leeds Newcastle.
Yeah.
5-2 to Leeds. And we do also have to... Who said what? I said Leeds.
You said Leeds. I said draw.
Well, and also got to mention the United Leeds yesterday. It was 6-2. And I have to say that I actually bought a month's supply of Sky TV yesterday, starting so I could watch that first game, although I didn't bother watching the two earlier that I could have got with buying the month's supply. But I wanted to watch Leeds against Man United because I knew there would be 200 goals in that game because Leeds go for it. There is no messing around with them. It's going to be high scoring, one or the other. Everybody that I've listened to on the radio have all said playing yesterday, they loved it. They love Leeds. All they did was talk about Leeds and the way they play. Didn't mention Man United because Man United played the week before played Man City in the most boring game known to mankind. They play Leeds and they play the most entertaining game all season. That had nothing to do with the way Man United play. Sorry, United fans. Sorry, Ollie. That was not... They didn't win 6-2 because of the way United played. They won 6-2 because of the way Leeds played. And they beat Newcastle, Leeds, 5-2 because of the way Leeds play. They go 100% and they do man-to-man marking. And if they get turned, the players, it's a goal. If they then turn theirs, it's a goal. And that is the way they play. And it's fascinating. And you know that yesterday's game could easily have been 6-6. The reason it was 6-2 was United scored their 6 chances.
Just a bit more clinical.
Yeah, Bamford missed a couple. Bamford could have put Leeds in front, but he didn't. And United could have missed theirs like they did the week before, and they wouldn't have scored 6. And it was the game was Leeds make the difference. And any team playing Leeds must take a deep breath and have to be physically 120% fit, which you have to say United were. I will clap United on the back. But they got their first 2 goals within 3 minutes, and then it just became basketball goals. And it was entertaining. Leeds are entertaining. If I was a Leeds fan, I don't know what I'd think. Leeds better not mess it up. They better stay in there. I love it, and I would watch any Leeds match because you never know.
But then if you want them to stay up, then you've got to turn down a little bit how many goals they score and concede.
It's going to be interesting to see. Can you see what their goal difference is?
I can look it up. I imagine it's a bit topsy-turvy.
It could be 0.
It probably is. -6.
-6. Not too bad then.
No. I mean, of course, they are nearer the bottom of the table, so you kind of expect them to be like that. But they have scored more than most teams as well.
I think their only problem is going to be in the second part of the season when your team has already played them. I think to start with, teams are going to play them and not be used to this style of football.
Mm.
And once you've played them once and you've seen it, then you know what you're doing.
You understand.
And I think they might have a bit of a problem come second half of the season because they never change the way they play is their problem.
No.
But they're going to have to. I think they're going to have to. Okay, next game, Kieran.
Leicester versus Everton.
Sorry, we could mention Newcastle, but is it worth the effort?
Not really.
No.
They're also just there like Brighton, aren't they?
It's also worth saying Leeds fullback had 7 shots against Newcastle, which I think on target, which I think really sums them up, really, don't you?
Mm.
Right. Okay. Leicester, Everton, was it?
Yeah, we both said Leicester would win that, but in fact Everton did. Just a bit of a shock. Then Everton, in their last 3 games, I think they've beat Chelsea, they beat Leicester, and who they beat this weekend?
Who do they play this weekend?
They beat someone decent, didn't they?
Spurs.
No, Leicester beat Spurs.
Who are we talking about?
Everton. Yeah. 1 second.
They beat Arsenal. Depends.
They beat Arsenal. Yeah.
Depends who you mean decent. Then.
So yeah. But Everton, their last 3 games have done very decently, and they're looking like they're kind of.
Right, you're frozen again. You're definitely going to move this. Just, I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to say Everton's last 7 goals have been scored by 7 different players, and I think that is going to make a difference. Instead of relying on one player, they're getting goals from all over the pitch, and I think that's always great. I mean, it's all well and fine to have your one player that scores, 30 goals, but that's always been a bonus for Liverpool. The fact that Mane hasn't been scoring until this weekend, he's had 9 games without scoring. He didn't have to score for Liverpool to win. So, talking of Liverpool winning, 2-1 against Tottenham.
Bit of an emotional one, that.
Well, I think I am on the right. Yeah, Liverpool against Tottenham. Well, I think Mr. Tottenham could be in trouble here. Everybody talking about how great Tottenham are, and they're going for they've only picked up 1 point in the last 9.
Yeah, they've done in the last 3 games. Yeah, I don't know what you can really say about. They just looked a bit flat against Leicester yesterday. Liverpool, they obviously didn't do anything. They had some very clear-cut chances, but they were all within a certain period of time, and apart from that, they didn't do anything. Liverpool walked them off the pitch effectively. Could say we were lucky to get our goal in the end, but they didn't provide anything, and they didn't yesterday either. So I think they've got a problem, and that is very similar to Leeds. They play one style of football, and their style of football is, I mean, if they're going to beat a team, it's going to be Liverpool. Because of their style of football, if it's teams like Liverpool and Leeds that they can beat. I don't know how they beat teams like Everton and Southampton. I don't know how they beat teams like that because of the style of football. Yeah. It was the thing with their system is that you have to be extremely disciplined. And that's what let them down yesterday with that penalty that they gave away, which is just lack of concentration, discipline, and everything, really. It was an awful penalty to give away. And so, do they have the players who can keep that up for a whole season? No. Aurier and Dyer are going to make mistakes. Like, and they're going to lose concentration at points. Like, that's just a given.
Yeah.
And so I don't think they'll.
I thought they
were, but no.
I don't think they'll be going for the title. I really don't. West Ham, Crystal Palace.
We both said Crystal Palace. It was a draw.
We haven't done very well again, have we?
Well, we've done pretty awful this week.
Well, West Ham, like Crystal Palace, quite like. What happened to Crystal Palace? Got absolutely slaughtered.
They did get sorted this weekend.
Yeah. Well, West Ham, I'm happy with that scoreline. He's probably, Mr. Manager, he's probably in his last year.
Bless him.
Yeah. I know his contract comes to an end at the end of this season, so he's probably on his last legs, so to speak. Well, there we go then. We'll give that a call. And just to say, do we have the next games? I've got it here. Shall we just do today's? No, we do the 26th.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the 26th and 27th. So, are you going to write these down?
Yeah.
Are you ready? Just straight through them really fast. We're running out of time. On your marks, get set. Arsenal, Chelsea.
Chelsea.
I'm going for Arsenal. It's about time. I think they're going to do a shocker.
Who's at home?
Arsenal. I'll read them out in order.
Okay, yeah.
Arsenal. Aston Villa, Crystal Palace.
Villa.
Yeah, Villa. Fulham, Southampton.
I want to say Fulham.
Say a draw. Without Ings. Leicester City versus Manchester United.
Leicester.
Manchester United. They're away.
Oh, yeah. No, I'll still go Leicester. I want them to win.
City, Man City against Newcastle.
Newcastle have upset a few teams sometimes, haven't they?
Mm-hmm.
Nah, City have got to do something.
They have, yeah, City, yeah. Sheffield United, Everton.
Everton. I want Sheffield United to get at least points as possible.
I'm going to say Sheffield United.
Really?
I'm just because I feel sorry for them, and because I get so few right, I'm probably giving it to the opposition. Leeds, Burnley.
Leeds.
Liverpool, West Brom.
Liverpool.
West Ham, Brighton.
West Ham.
Yeah. Wolves, Tottenham.
Ooh. Draw.
Wolves. And that's it.
That is it.
Okay, so that's the end of Chairboys Chat. Please put your comments. Please put anything that you want to say below. Put your predictions below as well. And we'll see you next time.